Ben Campbell and Rhinestone Cowboy, BBC Radio Nottingham. Afternoon. A survey of business leaders suggests there's been a significant drop in economic confidence since the vote to leave the European Union. The Purchasing Managers' Index, which measures the mood in the manufacturing and services sectors, fell during this month to its lowest level since April 2009. That was the aftermath of the financial crisis. Chris Williamson, chief economist at IHS Markit, made this assessment of the figures.
This is the first bit of hard data that we've got since the UK voted to leave the EU. And it's shown what is the most dramatic turnaround in the economy that we've actually had since we've been collecting this data over nearly 20 years. So this is the big question. Is this the start of something worse, or is this a knee-jerk reaction? And unfortunately, there's signs of both.
The new Chancellor, Philip Hammond, has said he may use the autumn statement to reset Britain's economic policy if necessary. That means the government could adopt a new approach to tax and spending if the economy weakens post-Brexit. Simon Gray represents hundreds of local businesses as chief executive of the group Nottingham Means Business. Afternoon to you.
Hi, Richard. Hi, good to be here.
Thanks for coming on. So this drop in economic confidence, is it shared by business leaders in this area?
Well, I was just listening to Chris's comments in the recording, and I think it is a knee-jerk reaction, and I would challenge what he said, because this is not necessarily based on hard facts. This is about sentiment, and this is based on 1 month only, which is July. And of course, we had the referendum in June. This is the first reaction to that. I think to a certain extent this is a knee-jerk reaction by people who didn't necessarily expect that this would happen. I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of businesses didn't expect it to happen, and this is the first bit of data or opinion that kind of suggests maybe things are on the slide, but I'm not convinced they are.
What are the major concerns, would you say?
Well, businesses like certainty. So for investment decisions, businesses want to know what's around the corner as much as possible. Leading up to the referendum, of course, we were in a time of uncertainty because we didn't know what the result would be. We now know what the result is, like it or not, whatever side of the fence you happen to sit on. At least we've got a decision, and we now have a new Prime Minister who is committed to doing what needs to be done, and a new cabinet to get on and do it. I mean, on the more positive side, if you look at the value of sterling, it's fallen. It's probably dropped about 10% since the referendum. I think it was about 2,000 points overnight, which doesn't happen every day of the week. But of course, it makes our exports more competitive. We've got to keep a watch on inflation, but from a manufacturing perspective, your exports are more competitive currently. So it'd be interesting to see what happens moving forward.
That's very much a short-term solution, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, it is, because you've always got the danger that the economy can overheat, because if exports are more competitive, imports by default become more expensive. And there's a risk that we import inflation. So I'm sure the Bank of England will be keeping a close watch on this, because we've got this 2% target max for inflation. We don't want the economy to overheat. And this kind of thing is always a delicate balancing act between monetary policy and fiscal policy. And it'll be interesting to see what the new Chancellor does in the autumn statement about that.
Confidence levels falling to the lowest since those sort of very precarious days of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009. It sounds pretty worrying.
Yeah, and I think on first reflection, it is. We've had a lot of news that's come out. Moody's downgraded the UK economy. There's been quite a lot of negative news. The decision, the UK people have made a decision, and that is to leave the EU. That decision has been made, and I think what happens now is really down to beliefs and attitudes about what will happen. And if we labour on this kind of doom and gloom, then we're probably going to get more doom and gloom. If actually we accept what's happened, move forward with confidence, then we could see some positive stuff coming out of this.
What do you think Philip Hammond is going to do, the new Chancellor?
I think he's only a few days in the job, isn't he?
What can he do? What can he do to steady the ship?
Yeah, I mean, he's got various tools to play around with. Taxation's one thing he could mess around with. Public spending, he could boost the economy with some new infrastructure products. Public spending, that's one thing he could do. He's not going to do anything drastic. This will be his first autumn statement. His job is to keep the ship steady, as is the Bank of England's job. So I have no idea. If I knew what he was going to do, or I could recommend what he was going to do, then I'd put myself up for the job. But that's not gonna happen. He's got a tough ask, but I'm confident in the new Prime Minister. I'm confident in the new cabinet that they'll put the UK in good shape moving forward.
Early days post-Brexit, but how confident are you that we are sailing away from a recession?
I think it really boils down to attitude and the way the markets work. If you look at sterling, that's always based on psychology. It's people's reaction to news, to stories, to what they perceive is happening. The reality is we can create the future we choose to create. We are still an important global economy. We have trade partners in Europe. We're not suddenly going to stop trading with Europe. I drive a German car. We're still going to import cars from Germany. And, there are other international markets, China, USA, all over the place that we can explore trading opportunities with. And in Nottingham, Nottingham Means Business is part of a bigger organisation now, which is about place marketing for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. And, we've got good relationships with Germany. We've got good relationships with China. The US is a market that we're going to be looking at to attract inward investment. So if we believe that things will be positive and take action in that direction, then I think we've got a good chance of making things happen.
Good to speak to you. Simon Gray, Nottingham Means Business.